They laughed at my cheap gift like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. The sound of it still echoes in my ears, sharp, dismissive, the kind that makes your stomach twist even as you keep smiling. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back, because this isn't just about one party or one box wrapped in plain brown paper. This is the story of how my own in-laws taught me the quiet power of never letting them see what I was really worth. My name is Linda Thompson. I'm 58 years old, a mother of 2 grown children, and for 32 years I've been married to the gentlest man alive, Mark. We live in a modest white bungalow on Maple Lane, the kind with creaky wooden floors that sigh when you walk across them at night and a kitchen that always smells of fresh bread and coffee. I never chased luxury. My days were simple, waking to the soft click of our old alarm clock, kissing Mark on the cheek as he left for his accounting office, tending my little rose garden where the petals felt like velvet under my fingers. Our children, Emily and Jack, would call on weekends, their laughter filling the phone line, and we'd talk about ordinary things, work, the weather, life. It felt warm. It felt enough. But every month, when we drove up the long driveway to Richard and Eleanor's mansion, the one with the sweeping marble staircase and crystal chandeliers that caught the light like diamonds, something inside me tightened. They were the picture of old money, or so they wanted everyone to believe. Eleanor, with her perfectly set silver hair and pearls that clicked when she moved, would greet me with a cool kiss on the cheek. "Linda, darling, you look comfortable," she'd say, her eyes flicking over my simple cotton dress. Richard would clap Mark on the back and mutter, "Still letting the little woman handle the gifts, eh?" Their words weren't loud, but they landed like small stones in still water, rippling through every family gathering. I never showed how much it hurt. I'd just smile, fold my hands in my lap, and let the scent of their expensive candles and roasted lamb wash over me. Mark knew my secret, the inheritance my parents left me after they passed, quietly grown over the years into something solid and safe. We never flaunted it. "Let them think what they want," he'd whisper in the dark, his hand warm on mine while our bedroom clock ticked softly. But then came the first quiet clue that cracked everything open. It was a Sunday brunch 3 months ago. I was carrying empty plates back to the kitchen when I heard Richard's voice through the half-open study door, low, strained, nothing like his usual booming laugh. "The bank won't wait any longer. If the mortgage isn't cleared by next month, they'll auction the house." My steps faltered. The clink of china suddenly sounded too loud in my ears. Eleanor appeared in the hallway, her smile tight as wire. She saw me, said nothing, and glided away. That night I lay awake beside Mark, the weight of those words pressing on my chest like the heavy quilt we'd had since our wedding. I tried to push the suspicion away. It couldn't be real. Not their perfect mansion. Not their perfect lives. But the doubt had already taken root, soft and stubborn, like the first green shoot in spring soil. I didn't say a word about what I'd overheard. Not to Mark, not even to myself in the mirror the next morning while I brushed my teeth and watched the foam drip slowly into the sink. Some truths feel too heavy to speak aloud until you're sure they won't shatter everything you've built. So I carried it quietly, the way you carry a stone in your pocket, small enough to ignore, sharp enough to remind you it's there. The weeks that followed felt strangely ordinary on the surface. Mark and I still sat on the porch swing most evenings, the chains creaking gently while fireflies blinked in the grass. I still baked my cinnamon rolls on Saturdays, the warm spice drifting through the house until even the mailman commented on it when he dropped off the bills. But underneath, I started paying closer attention. At the next family dinner, Eleanor's famous roast beef with rosemary from her own garden, I noticed the little changes. The silver candelabra that used to gleam on the dining table was gone. Replaced with plain white tapers and plain glass holders. Richard laughed too loudly at his own jokes, the sound thinner than usual, and his hand trembled slightly when he poured the wine. Eleanor kept smoothing the tablecloth with quick, nervous strokes, the way people do when they're trying to iron out more than fabric. Then came Christmas. Their mansion was decorated the same way every year, white poinsettias, gold ribbons, a towering tree dripping with crystal ornaments. But this time the foyer felt colder, the lights dimmer somehow. I arrived with my usual gift, a simple wooden cutting board I'd sanded and oiled myself, engraved with their initials and the year we first met. Nothing extravagant. Just something made with my hands. When Richard unwrapped it, he held it up like evidence in a courtroom. "A cutting board," he said, voice flat. Eleanor gave a small, tinkling laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "How practical, Linda. You always know how to keep things humble." Their two daughters-in-law, Mark's sisters' wives, exchanged glances and covered their mouths. One of them whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "She probably got it at the flea market for $10. The room erupted in polite chuckles, the kind that sting more than outright cruelty. I felt heat climb my neck, but I kept my face soft. I folded the torn wrapping paper neatly, the crinkle loud in my ears, and said only, "I thought you might like something useful." Mark squeezed my knee under the table, his silent apology, his steady anchor. Later, when everyone had drifted toward the living room for coffee, I slipped into the hallway near Richard's study. The door was ajar again. I heard him on the phone, voice low and urgent. "I'm telling you, we're out of time. The second payment bounced last week." "Yes, I know what foreclosure looks like." A long pause. Then, quieter, "We can't let the children know." "Not yet." My heart thudded so hard I thought they'd hear it through the walls. I backed away slowly, the Persian runner muffling my steps, and returned to the party with the same calm smile I'd worn for 30 years. That night, lying in the guest bedroom under their stiff, starched sheets, I made my decision. Not out of anger, at least, not the hot, flashing kind. It was something colder, clearer. Like frost settling on a windowpane. I would help them. But I would do it my way. The next morning I woke before dawn. The guest room window framed a pale winter sky, and the house was still except for the faint tick of the grandfather clock downstairs. I dressed quietly, kissed Mark's sleeping forehead, he stirred but didn't wake, and drove home alone. On the way, I called my lawyer, the same soft-spoken man who'd handled my parents' estate years ago. His voice was steady on the speakerphone. "Linda, are you sure?" I answered without hesitation. I've never been more sure of anything. 2 weeks later the papers were ready. Quiet. Clean. No fanfare. I bought the mortgage, every remaining dollar of it, through a private holding company so the name Thompson never appeared on any public filing. The bank was relieved, Richard and Eleanor were desperate. They signed without knowing who held the new note. I let the payments continue as they were, on time every month, while I waited. Spring arrived. The roses in my garden bloomed fat and red, their perfume heavy in the warm air. Then came the invitation, Eleanor's annual garden party. A small gathering, her note said in perfect cursive. "We'd love to have you both." I folded it carefully and placed it on the kitchen windowsill where the sunlight turned the ink golden. We arrived on a Saturday afternoon. The lawn was manicured, the fountain still bubbled, but the edges felt worn, the paint on the iron benches flaking, the flower beds thinner than before. Richard greeted us with his usual clap on Mark's back, but his smile was brittle. Eleanor hugged me lightly, her perfume sharp and familiar. "Linda, you're glowing," she said, the compliment sounding rehearsed. After the champagne was poured and small talk drifted like pollen, Richard cleared his throat at the center of the patio. "Family," he began, voice carrying over the murmur, "Eleanor and I have an announcement. We've decided to downsize. The house has become too much. We're putting it on the market." A polite ripple of surprise. Someone murmured sympathy. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, more performance than tears. I waited until the congratulations died down. Then I stepped forward, my voice calm, carrying just enough to reach every ear. "Before you list it," I said, "there's something you should know." I pulled the slim envelope from my purse, the deed transfer, stamped and final. "I bought the mortgage 2 months ago. The house isn't going anywhere. It's paid in full now. Yours. Free and clear." Silence fell like snow. Richard's glass trembled, champagne sloshed onto his cuff. Eleanor's handkerchief dropped to the stone. The laughter from Christmas echoed in the sudden quiet, not cruel, just gone. I met their eyes one at a time. "I heard you that Sunday in the study," I said softly. "I could have let the bank take it. I could have watched everything you built disappear piece by piece. But family doesn't do that to family. Even when family forgets what the word means." Mark stood beside me, his hand finding mine. No one spoke for a long breath. Then Eleanor whispered, barely audible, "Why?" I answered the only way that felt true. "Because I remember what it costs to lose a home. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even you." We left soon after. No dramatic exit. Just quiet footsteps down the drive, the crunch of gravel under our shoes. In the car Mark turned to me, eyes shining. You didn't have to do that. I smiled, small and real. I know. But I wanted to. Now the roses are blooming again. The bungalow still creaks at night. And sometimes the phone rings, Eleanor's voice softer than it used to be, asking how the garden is doing. I tell her. We talk. Not like before. Better, maybe. Because dignity isn't in the size of a house. It's in what you choose to do when no one expects kindness.